In life, who you exclude from your circle can be just as important as who you let in. While we often focus on building connections, we rarely stop to ask, are these people helping me grow or quietly draining me? Some individuals may seem harmless at first, even charming, but over time their presence starts to weigh heavily on your peace, energy, and sense of self. These aren't always people who shout or cause drama. Sometimes they're the ones who always play the victim, who subtly sabotage your progress, or who smile in your face while quietly resenting your success. The truth is, you don't need to hate them or wish them ill. You just need to recognize them for what they are: distractions, energy vampires, or emotional traps. And the earlier you identify these types, the freer your life becomes. 1. The chronic complainer. Always whining, never solving. In the teachings of Stoicism, inner peace isn't found in a world free of challenges, but in the clarity and resilience with which we face those challenges. Life will never be perfect, and it doesn't need to be. But there are certain people who make every imperfection heavier, not by the weight of events, but by their response to them. One of the most emotionally draining types is the chronic complainer, the one who constantly voices what's wrong, yet never takes a single step toward improvement. This person doesn't vent to find clarity or to seek support. They complain as a way of life. Every little inconvenience becomes a grand tragedy. They find fault in the weather, their boss, their relationships, the traffic, politics. Yet strangely, they never seem to change jobs, work on communication, take action, or learn patience. Their words are full of noise but empty of motion. And when you spend too much time around them, their noise begins to echo in your own mind. And Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control and to let go of what we cannot. Chronic complainers live in the exact opposite mindset. They focus solely on what's outside their control and never look inward. Instead of asking, what can I do about this? They say, why does this always happen to me? They believe life happens to them, never through them. Being around such individuals can be mentally corrosive. Their pessimism seeps into conversations. You try to encourage them, but it's like pouring water into a cup with a hole in the bottom. Nothing stays. They don't want advice, they want attention. They don't want direction, they want validation that the world is unfair and that they're victims of it. This dynamic can make you start questioning your own perspective, slowly pulling you into a cloud of negativity that never rains, never cleanses, and never clears. It's important to recognize that empathy doesn't mean enabling. Stoicism doesn't teach us to be cold, but it teaches us to set boundaries. If someone refuses to take responsibility for their life and their constant complaints begin to rob you of your own clarity, it's time to step back. Their suffering is real, but it's not your duty to carry their unwillingness to grow. You don't have to cut them off cruelly. Sometimes silence is a better teacher than advice. Sometimes distance is the best mirror. You can still care for them, just not at the cost of your own mental state. It's okay to walk away from conversations that go in circles. It's okay to protect your inner peace. Reflection. Don't allow someone else's chaos to become your own storm. You owe no one your peace, especially those who refuse to seek their own. Take a breath, reflect, and ask yourself today, who in my life is always talking about problems, but never about solutions? And more importantly, am I becoming one of them? 2. The victim of circumstance, always blaming, never owning. In the philosophy of Stoicism, the cornerstone of personal freedom lies in radical ownership of our lives. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic sage, once reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But there are people who live in direct contradiction to this truth. those who constantly blame external circumstances for everything that goes wrong in their lives. These are the individuals who believe life is unfair only to them. When they fail, it's because someone else got lucky. When they're passed over for an opportunity, it's because the system is rigged. When they're in pain, it's because the world has conspired against them. Nothing is ever their fault, not even their reactions. They live as if they are leaves blown by the wind, never stopping to realize they can grow roots. The danger of surrounding yourself with such people is subtle but corrosive. At first, you may feel empathy. Then you may begin to doubt your own efforts. Their mindset can sound convincing. After all, life is indeed full of hardship. But Stoicism teaches us to respond with courage, not complaint. These people, however, use hardship as a permanent shield, a reason to never act, never adapt, never improve. Over time, you'll notice a pattern. They don't just blame the past, they use it to avoid the present. Their narratives are full of if only I had a better childhood, if only the economy was better, if only people treated me differently. But growth never lives in the land of if only. It lives in the hard soil of what now? To the Stoic, obstacles are not excuses. They are the raw material for excellence. Epictetus, born a slave, didn't use his circumstance as a chain, but as a forge. He taught that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Yet those who always blame the world are trapped in the opposite belief, that they are helpless unless the world changes for them. Engaging deeply with such a person often becomes a one-sided effort. You offer insights, they offer resistance. You encourage self-reflection, they reroute to blame. It's exhausting and worse. It can begin to make you question whether effort even matters. That's the real poison of their presence, the slow erosion of personal responsibility. So guard your mind. Stoicism doesn't mean we dismiss suffering, but it urges us to meet suffering with strength. When someone refuses to own even the smallest part of their path, they are choosing weakness as a lifestyle. You can't walk that road for them. Reflection. You cannot steer a ship if the captain believes the ocean is always to blame. Ask yourself, am I walking with people who adjust their sails, or with those who curse the wind forever? And when life hits you, will you blame or will you build? Let that answer define your path. 3. The emotionally volatile, controlled by feelings, not by reason. In the Stoic worldview, emotions themselves are not the enemy. Uncontrolled emotions are. As human beings, we are not expected to be emotionless, but we are expected to govern our emotional responses with reason and discipline. The moment our feelings dictate our choices without restraint, we become enslaved by them. And being around someone who lives in this state, always reactive, always on edge, is like walking through a minefield barefoot. The emotionally volatile person is not simply passionate or expressive. This is someone who explodes in anger over minor inconveniences, collapses into despair at the slightest setback, or lashes out at others when things don't go their way. They wear their emotions like a badge of honor, but use them as weapons. You never know what will set them off, which makes every interaction feel unstable and unsafe. Marcus Aurelius once advised himself, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." But those who are emotionally explosive believe the opposite, that expressing every emotion without filter is a sign of authenticity. What they don't realize is that emotional expression without control is not strength. It's chaos disguised as honesty. When you spend time with this type of person, you may find yourself shrinking, becoming overly cautious with your words, afraid to say the wrong thing, or adjusting your own emotional rhythm just to maintain peace. This is not harmony. This is suppression. And no one should have to walk on emotional eggshells for someone else's inability to self-regulate. The Stoic doesn't ignore emotion, but they pause before responding. They create space between stimulus and action. Epictetus taught that our ability to choose how we respond is our greatest power. But emotionally volatile people abandon that power. They don't pause, they detonate. They leave trails of tension in their relationships and often blame others for their reactions. You made me angry. You stressed me out. But this is an illusion. No one can insert anger into you without your consent. Being around this kind of emotional energy for too long will deplete your mental and spiritual balance. You may find yourself mimicking their instability or even justifying it in the name of compassion. But there is a line. Compassion does not mean tolerating emotional harm. A Stoic understands that peace is not something you beg from others. It's something you protect from within. If a person repeatedly refuses to learn emotional discipline, it's not your responsibility to endure their eruptions. They must learn the weight of their reactions on their own. You can support their growth, but you cannot sacrifice your stability to cushion their volatility. Reflection. A flame that is never tamed will burn everything it touches, even the hand that tries to keep it warm. Ask yourself, do I surround myself with people who breathe fire into every emotion, or those who master the art of stillness? And more deeply, am I leading with reason or merely reacting with feeling? 4. The drama magnet. Chaos is their comfort zone. In the quiet heart of Stoic philosophy lies a simple, profound idea. Tranquility is not the absence of hardship, but the absence of disturbance. Life will always present difficulty, but the Stoics seek stillness amidst it. And that is precisely why we must be cautious around those who thrive on drama and conflict, because they are storms looking for new skies to invade. Some people don't just stumble into conflict, they create it. For them, life is never calm unless there's something to argue about, something to prove, or someone to fight. Every interaction is a potential battleground. Every silence must be filled with suspicion. These individuals are addicted to emotional stimulation. If peace enters the room, they either don't trust it or they try to destroy it. Drama is their lifeblood, and conflict is their chosen tool for feeling significant. When there's no real enemy to fight, they invent one. They gossip, exaggerate, misinterpret intentions, or provoke reactions, because deep down, they equate calm with emptiness. They mistake boredom for abandonment and harmony for weakness. The Stoic, by contrast, chooses the higher path. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But drama-driven individuals aren't reacting. They're always initiating conflict. They are the ones who light fires, not those who respond to smoke. And being close to them can cost you your serenity. Why? Because their chaos is contagious. You may start out as an observer, but soon you'll be asked to choose sides. You'll feel pulled into stories that aren't yours. You'll waste precious energy resolving issues that never needed to exist. Even worse, your own emotional baseline starts to shift. What once felt like instability now feels normal. These people often wear victimhood like armor. They tell stories where they are always wrong, never responsible. Yet, curiously, drama follows them wherever they go. The common denominator is not the world, it is them. And if you remain close to them, their battles will eventually become yours. Stoicism teaches us to simplify life, not by removing responsibility, but by removing unnecessary noise. The drama-filled person complicates life on purpose. Their identity is tangled in conflict, and they fear what might be left of themselves if the noise were gone. You don't owe anyone your emotional bandwidth, especially someone who misuses it. You can still be kind. You can still care, but you must protect your peace. A wise Stoic doesn't fight every battle. They choose which ones are even worth their breath. Reflection. Not every fire requires your water. Some are meant to burn themselves out. Ask yourself, am I protecting my inner calm, or am I letting someone else's chaos write the script of my day? And more deeply, am I a bringer of peace, or just another echo in the storm? 5. The envious, unable to celebrate anyone else's light. Envy is the most silent of poisons. It rarely announces itself with shouting or visible anger. Instead, it creeps into conversations through backhanded compliments, subtle bitterness, and quiet competition. The Stoics viewed envy as not only unwise, but unnatural. For why should the success of another diminish your own? And yet, some people live in a constant state of comparison, unable to find peace unless they feel superior. These individuals cannot celebrate the achievements of others. When someone rises, they feel it as a personal attack. A friend's promotion becomes their defeat. A colleague's talent feels like an insult to their worth. Their mindset is rooted in scarcity, as if there is only so much success available in the world, and every gain someone else makes somehow reduces their own potential. Being around envious people is draining because their world is not collaborative. It's competitive to the bone. They won't cheer for your growth. They'll downplay your wins or subtly highlight your flaws in moments of celebration. At best, they remain silent when good things happen to you. At worst, they quietly root for your failure. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Envy robs people of this joy. It turns life into a scoreboard. It teaches them to ignore their blessings and focus on what they lack. But more dangerously, it can make you begin to doubt the joy of your own accomplishments. It can make success feel unsafe. The Stoic knows that true greatness is internal. No one else's fortune can steal from your character, your virtue, or your path. If someone builds a mansion next door, it doesn't shrink your home. It just shines light on what's possible. But the envious person sees every light as a threat to their own glow. They compete where there is no competition. In close relationships, envy becomes especially toxic. It breeds resentment, jealousy, and sabotage. It creates invisible walls where support should be. It teaches people to withhold praise out of fear it will somehow make them smaller. This is a trap of the ego, and one that the Stoic escapes by practicing humility and gratitude. If you're often around those who are envious, beware. Their inability to celebrate others may eventually turn toward you. They may smile in your presence, but resent you in silence. And no matter how much you reassure them or include them, their envy will not dissolve until they confront it within themselves. You don't have to cut them out of your life completely, but you must never depend on them for encouragement. Your growth deserves better soil. 6. The inconsistent. Their words mean little, and their actions even less. In a world built on trust, few things are more damaging than the person whose words carry no weight. The Stoics believed that virtue was not about what we say, but what we do and how consistently we live according to our principles. When someone repeatedly fails to match their words with their actions, they erode not only trust, but also the foundation of every meaningful connection they have. These are the people who promise support but disappear when you need them. They commit to goals, then abandon them quietly. They speak with conviction, but follow through with excuses. Today they're inspired, tomorrow indifferent. They might speak about discipline, but live in chaos. Their inconsistency isn't occasional, it's their habit. To the Stoic, integrity is sacred. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. But the inconsistent person talks more than they act. They craft beautiful intentions but fail to honor them. They might not even intend to deceive. They simply lack the internal stability to follow through. Their life is shaped by impulses, not principles. The danger in surrounding yourself with these people is subtle but real. At first, you may give them the benefit of the doubt. You may wait patiently, rationalizing their behavior as just busy or just distracted. But over time, your own standards begin to shift. You become more tolerant of unreliability. You expect less from others, perhaps even from yourself. Worse still, their words lose all meaning. You stop listening to their promises. You start assuming their commitments are temporary. This damages the relationship at its root. Because without trust, there can be no growth, no foundation, no depth. Stoicism teaches us to be intentional. If we say we will do something, we do it. If we fail, we acknowledge it with humility and strive to improve. Consistency doesn't mean perfection, it means alignment between what we value and how we live. The inconsistent person lives out of alignment, and because of that, they create chaos, not only for themselves, but for everyone who counts on them. It's not unkind to expect consistency, it's respectful. People who constantly change their tone, goals, or promises without reflection are not being flexible. They're being unstable. And instability, over time, becomes a burden. You don't need to confront them with anger. You can simply reduce your dependency. Place your trust in those whose actions whisper louder than their words shout. Your peace depends on reliability, not empty enthusiasm. Reflection. A steady hand may not be flashy, but it keeps the ship from sinking. The same is true of character. Ask yourself, am I trusting people for who they really are, or for who they keep saying they'll be? And more deeply, does my own life speak louder than my words? 7. The ruthless opportunist, when the end justifies anything. One of the most dangerous types of individuals to keep close is the one who believes that the end always justifies the means. For them, goals are everything, principles nothing. They might appear ambitious, bold, even inspiring at first glance, but beneath the surface lies a hollow compass, pointing not toward virtue, but personal gain at any cost. In Stoic philosophy, the how matters just as much as the what. Marcus Aurelius taught, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Yet to the ruthless opportunist, ethics are optional. Truth is flexible, and values are tools to be picked up and discarded depending on what serves their self-interest. These people will smile to your face and manipulate you behind your back. They will break promises, twist facts, and trample over others, not because they're evil in the cinematic sense, but because they've convinced themselves that outcomes are all that count. Whether it's money, status, or power, they chase it with cold calculation. And if you get in the way, you become expendable. At first, their charisma may draw you in. They may speak in lofty terms about vision, excellence, results. But over time, cracks begin to show. The small compromises they make for success become more frequent, more blatant. They justify dishonesty as strategy. They dismiss empathy as weakness. Their hunger is never satisfied because it's not fed by meaning, it's fed by ego. Being around them slowly shifts your moral center. You may begin to question your own values. Maybe it's okay to lie a little. Maybe stepping on people is just how the world works. This erosion of character is the true cost of keeping the wrong company, not just external consequences, but the quiet betrayal of your own soul. The Stoic path is not about passivity. It is about purpose with principle. It is strength wrapped in wisdom. It is ambition guided by justice. To act without integrity is not power, it's desperation. As Seneca warned, he who does not prevent a crime when he can, encourages it. Staying silent, or worse, supporting the tactics of the ruthless, makes us complicit. You must be clear, not all success is admirable. Not all winning is worth respecting. A victory gained through dishonor is not a victory. It is simply a louder failure. If someone is willing to destroy others for their own climb, they will have no issue using you as a step when the time comes. In your own life, the Stoic test is not how far you go, but how you go there. The person who abandons virtue for shortcuts may arrive quickly, but they leave behind pieces of themselves they may never recover. Reflection. A mountain climbed without integrity is still a fall, just one in disguise. Ask yourself, am I walking with people who value the path as much as the destination? And deeper still, is my own journey one I could walk again without shame, even if no one else were watching? 8. The untrustworthy. When secrets become currency. Trust is not built in grand gestures. It's built in small, invisible acts of respect, especially in what someone does with your silence. There are people who treat your vulnerability as sacred, and then there are those who treat it as gossip fuel. Stoicism teaches us to value character above charm, and when someone cannot be trusted with your truth, their charm becomes irrelevant. These individuals seem warm, approachable, even friendly, until you realize they collect stories like coins. They listen, but not to understand. They listen to possess. And when the moment is right or entertaining, they share what was never theirs to share. They leak pain disguised as anecdotes. They turn your privacy into their punchline. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But the untrustworthy person listens only to eventually speak more, and often to the wrong audience. They do not distinguish between casual chatter and confidential confessions. Their loyalty bends to the weight of attention, approval, or personal gain. Over time, being around someone like this changes you. You speak less. You withhold more. You walk on eggshells, unsure what version of your story might float into the world tomorrow. This is the slow erosion of emotional safety. And when safety disappears, so does depth. Relationships become shallow, guarded, and artificial. The Stoics believe that trust is the glue of society. Without it, no meaningful friendship, partnership, or community can survive. Seneca advised, treat your friend as if he might become your enemy, not as a command to be paranoid, but as a warning to choose carefully who you allow into your inner world. Trust is not about perfection. People can make mistakes, but habitual betrayal is not a mistake. It's a pattern. And a pattern that breaks trust is one of the clearest signs of poor character. Some will apologize profusely after spilling your secret, but apologies without growth are simply rehearsals for the next betrayal. It is not cruelty to set boundaries with these people. It is wisdom, because the cost of misplaced trust is not just embarrassment, it is the collapse of connection. And once broken, trust is not easily rebuilt. Even if forgiven, it rarely returns whole. Be mindful of those who speak freely about others. One day you will become the other. And when you're not in the room, your name becomes another story in their collection. This isn't harshness, it's clarity. Reflection. If someone treats your secrets like entertainment, they've already told you what they think of your soul. Ask yourself, do I share myself with people who honor silence? And even deeper, can I be trusted to hold what others hand me in confidence, not because it benefits me, but because it defines who I am? 9. The approval addict, trapped in the eyes of others. There are few prisons more suffocating than the constant need to be liked. Some people live not from the core of their own convictions, but from the ever-changing winds of public opinion. They obsess over being agreeable, presentable, and admired, often at the cost of authenticity, peace, and self-respect. In the eyes of Stoicism, this behavior is deeply fragile. As Epictetus reminds us, If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. But the approval addict cannot bear this. They need applause, validation, and social safety to feel worthy. And in chasing it, they sacrifice the very freedom the Stoics teach us to protect: freedom of thought, action, and being. These people often seem pleasant on the surface, polite, adaptable, even generous. But underneath, there is turmoil. Every decision is filtered through the lens of, what will people think? Their minds are never quiet because they are never alone. They carry a crowd in their head. 1,000 imagined critics haunt their choices. They cannot speak, dress, or act without fearing invisible judgment. This chronic people-pleasing has a hidden consequence. They become unreliable. Not because they mean harm, but because they are guided by approval, not values. Today, they support one idea because it pleases a friend. Tomorrow, they support the opposite because it pleases someone else. Their word floats on public opinion, never anchored by inner clarity. You will notice something else. They avoid discomfort at all costs. Difficult conversations are too risky. Honesty feels dangerous. They prefer smiles over truth and silence over integrity. And if your truth makes them look bad in any way, they may quietly distance themselves to protect their image. For the Stoics, this is the opposite of virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This is the paradox of the approval addict. They betray themselves in order to be accepted by people who often aren't even paying attention. Being around someone like this can drain you. You may begin to question your own authenticity. You may catch yourself censoring your voice or overthinking your actions, simply to avoid offending their fragile self-image. Worse, they may pull you into the same cycle of seeking validation, from likes, applause, or praise. To live well, we must accept that not everyone will understand or like us. And that's not just okay, it's necessary. True peace begins where the need to impress ends. The approval addict, however, never reaches this peace because their self-worth is outsourced. They rent their identity from others, and the rent is never cheap. Reflection: if you shape your life for every audience, you'll forget what you look like without the mask. Ask yourself, am I living by my values or by their applause? And more importantly, are the people around me walking with integrity or just performing for approval that vanishes as quickly as it appears? 10. The unwilling learner. Stuck in the comfort of stagnation. In a world that constantly evolves, staying the same is a silent form of decay. Some people cling to their old ways, not out of wisdom, but out of fear. They reject new ideas, avoid discomfort, and resist growth, not because they've mastered life, but because they fear the unknown path that learning requires. Stoicism does not tolerate mental laziness. Epictetus was clear. Only the educated are free. But freedom in this context doesn't mean diplomas or titles. It means the ability to see life clearly, to adapt with reason, and to sharpen the mind through deliberate effort. The unwilling learner chooses instead to remain in the dark, and even worse, they defend their ignorance as if it were a virtue. These people often say things like, "That's just how I am," or "I don't need to change." They confuse stubbornness with strength, but true strength comes from the humility to admit you don't know, the courage to ask, and the discipline to improve. The Stoics admired those who question themselves, who constantly refine their thinking and examine their assumptions. Being around someone who refuses to grow can feel like walking in circles. Conversations repeat themselves. Problems stay unsolved. The same toxic patterns resurface: anger, blame, avoidance. because they've chosen comfort over challenge. And comfort, when not balanced with curiosity, becomes a cage. They fear growth because it demands the death of the old self. It means confronting their weaknesses, acknowledging mistakes, and letting go of false certainty. But as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth. The unwilling learner does not seek truth, they seek safety. But that safety is temporary and fragile. Their presence can also hinder your own evolution. You may find your ideas dismissed, your progress minimized, your books mocked, your aspirations questioned, not because they're wrong, but because your growth threatens their stability. It reminds them that they could change too, but won't. Growth is a lifetime project. It doesn't demand perfection, only progress. But progress requires openness, the willingness to be challenged, to be wrong, to evolve. If someone refuses this, no matter how kind or familiar they seem, they will eventually hold you back. Not actively, perhaps, but by their inertia. And inertia is contagious. Reflection. To stop growing is to start dying, quietly, invisibly, and often without realizing it. Ask yourself, are the people around me pushing themselves to evolve, or just making peace with their limits? And deeper still, am I the kind of person who welcomes growth even when it's uncomfortable? Or have I confused peace with passivity? Avoiding these 10 types of people doesn't mean you're heartless. It means you've decided to take your inner peace seriously. It means you've chosen to protect your time, your dreams, and your emotional balance from those who threaten it, whether intentionally or not. Not everyone deserves access to your life, and not everyone is meant to walk with you through your most important chapters. By learning to set boundaries and walk away from the wrong people, you make space for the right ones, those who respect your values, support your growth, and help you become who you're meant to be.